Okay, we are live with Lady MJ for the first time. How are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you so much. And how are you?
I'm doing great. The Family Electric Ghost podcast, we've been on the air since 2016, as a video podcast since 2020. We've done over 800 episodes, so we're excited to have you on the show. We are on a platform called Newsly. So anybody in the audience, if they use coupon code GHOST, you can get 1 month free premium subscription. They take video podcasts and translate them to audio. We are a featured podcast on the Newsly platform, which is on Android and iOS. So use coupon code GHOST to get 1 month free premium subscription so you can stop scrolling and start listening. Now, we're going to be talking for the next hour to Lady MJ, who's your brand is the MariJayne Maven, right?
Yes, that's correct. The MariJane Maven Cannabis Lifestyle Education Wellness brand. And I also have a media company as well. So I do a lot of content creation, a lot of education surrounding cannabis, and all of the beautiful things and benefits that the beautiful flower power, um, presents and can provide to you.
It's a very cool thing to do because there's so many companies like the pharmaceutical industry wants to get people on all kinds of heavy chemicals, and marijuana, cannabis. It's just more. It's a natural choice. It's like if you're more
Right.
into a natural choice, a lot of people go organic. If you start thinking about what you're putting in your body, and maybe you
Mhm.
can talk more about that because I'm not a big expert, but I tend to eat a lot of organic food, and I have a hydroponic garden at home to
Ooh.
to try to avoid, running into a lot of things that go on today in the market. So
Mhm.
as you talk, how did you find yourself in this area? Like how did you to get interested in it and how long have you been doing it?
Well, I will start with, let's see, 2006. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. The way that I refer to it is it lives with me. I don't like to say that I have or, I'm sick with, because then I think that you really manifest um, and you live within an illness. So
Mhm.
2006 is when I became diagnosed. Um, just finished college. During college, definitely used the plants recreationally. Um, and when I became diagnosed, I had, if anybody knows of Kaiser, it was a horrible experience. I had had them my entire life. And when I was diagnosed, the neurologist just threw a packet of paper at me and said, "Go home and read about it. Go Google about it, and then call me and let me know what you want to do." I I was dumbfounded. I was terrified. Um, I didn't have the information that was required in order for me to understand and move forward, with the next steps in my life. My husband and I had only been married 6 months at that time, and so it was just a shock to the system. So I immediately trusted the neurologist and started taking some of the medication. And that lasted for about 6 months, and I hated every minute of it because I felt ill. I was so
Mm,
attached to this shot that happened every day.
mm.
Um, 7 different locations on my body. I had horrible sight reactions. I had bruises. Um, it made me tired, and it just did not fit into what I saw for my quality of life. So after some time, I decided to perform my due diligence and to take control of my health, the understanding of, the medical industry and the relationship that I could and needed to have with my neurologist. And after a lot of research, I decided that using cannabis was going to be the best option for me. Um, I have, I think maybe twice since then, I've gone on a short dosage of, what I call big pharma, what they prescribe, and it just like I said, it just was not fit for me, and I'm healthy by the grace of God, the universe, Mother Nature. Um, and I really give a lot of credence and credit to using cannabis. And as
Wow.
I ventured along in my journey, it allowed me to, um, obtain the information that allows me now to be a brand educator and to help other people realize the benefit of the plant.
So when you were going through all that, how did you find out the medical usage of it? Did you do the research on your own? Did you found somebody that kind of helped you with that?
I did have a he was a he was a physician that I'll be very honest. He reminded me of Doc Holliday from Back to the Future, and I'm not even joking. He looked
You look
very
like
much like that. And I was actually going to get my medical cannabis license, and he sat with me for about an hour and a half. My husband and I for about an hour and a half, and talked to me about what exactly the illness will do and can do, and what it's exactly doing within your body,
Mhm.
how to eat. And so I love that you said, eat organically, because that's so super important to make sure that you're eating the right foods for your form of the illness, because everybody has different symptoms and it affects everybody differently.
Yeah.
Um, and in his kind of kooky way of delivery, he just really looked at me and he said, "This is gonna be the best thing that you can do for your health." And he looked at my husband and he said, "For your marriage and for your future children." And he said, "Because you're gonna be able to have control over what you're putting into your body." Um,
Mhm.
and I mean, I walked out of there feeling so enlightened, a little amused, because like I said, he really, really reminded me of Doc Holliday. Um, but empowered as well. And so with his help, and there was a lot of, publications available at that time. But because it wasn't widely accepted, you had to make sure that you knew the individuals in the industry that were advocates and staunch supporters of having cannabis, be legal. And I was lucky enough to make connections, get in contact with those individuals. I received a few books for free, and I just after probably a month of doing research, my husband and I both felt very confident in choosing that as my form of um of treatment.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
So it
and
seems
it's
like you're you're here and you're feeling better and you feel more empowered because the pharmaceutical industry kind of gets puts you into situations where you take one pill to solve the problems,
yeah,
the side effects of another
mhm,
one, and another one
yeah,
solves the side effects of that one, and then pretty soon you got a whole pill box of
yeah.
things that's like going here
You're
and
taking a
there.
multitude of
Yeah,
pills per day. And
yeah, it's not what you want.
yeah, no,
So
I definitely think that's something that affects the quality of life. I mean, we should be able to live, an empowered and enlightened life, and whenever we see fit, in whatever form of success that is to you. And of course, having good health. I mean, that's the foundation of it. Um, and it a few years later, working in corporate sales, I'd gone to school, got a job, married. We had children at this time, and it was just me staying in a career that I was damn good at, but I hated it. I was just unfulfilled.
mhm.
Um, so I came to a time in my life where I said, maybe it's just me. I'm an Aries. Maybe I'm flaky. It's just meant for me to bounce around from different positions, every 5 years or so. Um, and I was able to utilize it in a way where it wasn't me developing, kind of a um, unreliable and very short, terms of careers or jobs. I was able to each time move up, so it seemed like I was
Yeah,
on a really good trajectory within my career. Um, and then in 2016, my sister-in-law was unfortunately diagnosed with a rare form of leukemia. That was in June, And at the end of November, so around Thanksgiving, she was in the, recovery center, and they, everything looks great. She had a bone marrow transplant, and by all medical, definitions and all the knowledge, she was going to be fine. And immediately it just turned, and her white blood cells started attacking her body, and she passed away a week later.
Oh, wow.
She was
That's
only
terrible.
41, and that sparked um just something in me. It just ignited this desire, this need. I don't want to say it was a void, but it was something that was just constantly on my mind. And what I realized it was that I was living in fear instead of living within my passion and purpose. And, you know, having that tragedy happen really just just put a spotlight on what I needed to do. And I read The Alchemist. I love telling this story because I read that and I felt like somebody was writing the book for me. Like the words were just going on the page as I was reading. And it was just it was so defining, um, and validating. And I went to work, a couple of days later and went in late, went and talked to everybody about the long weekend. I mean, had a few cups of coffee, took a couple breaks, and then finally decided, all right, I'm going to go to my office and start work. When I sat down, I immediately just started cleaning off my desk, taking all my, personal um, effects down and packing them up in a box and cleaning off my computer because I hadn't been doing, some job searches and resumes on there and thing like that. And typed up my resignation letter, called my husband, and he's like, "Babe, you can't be calling me for lunch right now. Like, you got to work late. You've been there a couple hours." And I said, "Well, um, so I just quit." And he said, "I'm proud of you. It's about time that you've done that." Um, and he said, "I'll be there." He's a teacher, so he was off. It was the summertime, and he came and got me, and he said, "Let's just enjoy the summer with the boys. You're resourceful. You're gonna figure this out." I'm hard headed, and I'm an Aries, so for the next month or so, while he was sleeping, I'm searching. There had to be an answer out there. And I went into events and network, meetings and holding those events that was, a monthly event here in my city, and just really grew in allowing myself to realize my strengths and to take the 10 prior years of working and saying, "Oh, well, I'm I have all those skills." It's a combination of all those things that I was doing that now it's a strength of mine, and it's something that just one night it popped in my head. And I write everything down. And so I got out my creative journal and I wrote down cannabis education, being a featured speaker, because I feel like I have a story to tell, where cannabis plays a huge role in that. And the next morning, my husband woke up and I was just like, I'm gonna start. It's called the MariJayne Maven, and he's like, "Where'd you get that?" And I was like, "I don't know. I just like
Just
alliterations
came
of
to you.
things. I just like how that sounded." And then plus Mary Jane. I mean,
Yeah.
we all know. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. We're
and
doing James.
yeah, yeah, and I knew that Maven meant expert or passionate educator, and I knew that that's what I wanted my brand and my mission and my journey within the industry to be. And then I immediately came up with a mission statement, which is to educate, eradicate, and elevate. Because we lived with a reefer madness, um, you know,
Yeah.
falsehoods and narrative for a while. Plus, we had the legal aspect of what was keeping us disenfranchised. Um,
Mhm.
And in order for us to change the narrative around cannabis and exactly what it can do for us as far as building some wealth that may generational wealth that we can pass down, helping more people to become entrepreneurs. Um, Also helping your mental wellness, and just everything in a whole. I wanted to be able to have a part in that. In order to do that, where it becomes normalized the way that it deserves, we first have to provide the right education. We have to re-educate those individuals, such as, my grandmother, maybe my mom. Um, we have to re-educate them on what the plant actually is
And
and
what
what it
is
can do for you.
what is
Mm,
they had a whole history in, North America and Central America, with indigenous tribes using it. And it might have been just the kinda arrogance of the colonizer kinda
mhm,
mentality to come in and not throw all that away
mhm,
and then say, "Oh, our Western doctors and the pharmaceutical and the chemist, and they're gonna solve it." 'Cause it
mhm.
can't be that simple. It can't be
Oh,
that this plant that already exists, and you just gotta, watch what the indigenous people were doing from the Incas and the
mm,
Aztecs and the
yeah.
Cherokee, and all they were all using it,
I
and
mean, for
all
prior,
yeah,
with, um, within Egypt and Kemet, and,
yeah.
it was a
Indigenous
huge part.
folks everywhere,
Yeah, yeah, and
It's just
it's
yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
But it just seems like there's always this thing where, anything that indigenous culture found, like the medicine
Mhm,
men or the high priest or the people who were connected to Gaia and who knew
yes.
what plants to take and knew what they did. That type of knowledge was always kind of not really considered to be legitimate. And now
Well,
today, people are starting to realize that how
mhm.
legitimate it is.
Well, it was also a form of, disempowerment and taking away, um, a skill that would then leave individuals dependent upon the colonizers. Um, and then also, "Oh, well, we can make money off of this. We
Yeah,
can't allow that." So, I say all the time,
yeah, it can't
my
hurt.
great-great-grandmother, Medea, she would kill me if she knew that I didn't know how to kill a chicken and, you know, defeather it and throw it in the pot and with some,
Mm,
and just have a whole meal for my children, or that I'm just now getting into, my garden and things like that. We've lost the connection with a lot of the natural and holistic treatments and lifestyle that our ancestors, provided for us. And I think cannabis is a way for us to have that awakening and really start taking care of our health and utilizing what this planet provides. I mean, you know, you can charge $80 for a long stem, dozen of roses. Well, cannabis is just like a flower, just like roses. But
yeah.
what's been more widely accepted? That doesn't do anything for you. Roses does nothing for you.
Yeah, just
So
looking at it aesthetically, maybe, like, your aesthetic is like, "Oh,
yeah,
I like it." But,
yeah.
yeah, it just seems that there's a lot of natural substances you can get, the different types of mushrooms,
Mhm,
there's a lot of like, behavioral studies with, like, psychoactive mushrooms that they
mhm,
have really good effects for different diseases, and
yep,
so there's a lot of natural treatments that
mhm,
exist, and, some of those mushrooms are super expensive because 'cause they're rare, but the
yes,
idea that the earth does provide a lot of things, and older cultures knew what they
mhm,
were, and it's been kinda knowledge taken away from us
yes,
because they wanna control it,
mhm,
they like, whoa, the big powers that be, the big pharma
yeah,
and the big mega companies, they
mhm,
wanna control to the point where they patent plants. If
and,
they could, they'd
and
probably try to
capitalists.
patent
It's
every
yeah,
marijuana plant there is so that you
mhm,
couldn't even do it yourself. So, like, that's the type of world that they wanna control,
mhm,
and then as individuals, it's cool that you're the whole this is the whole thing about education and, like, it being a life coach and a lifestyle wellness, but also, like, it's generational wealth and being able to help
mhm,
groups that
Yes.
have been kind of targeted to not
Mhm.
have wealth. You know, we didn't get our 40 acres and a mule.
Yes,
We
I
were
say
kind of kept out of artisan unions, kept out of things. So we
say
got to
that all the
find
time.
a way to build this
Yes.
wealth.
I say that all the
You
time,
know?
I say it's not gonna be like the Dave Chappelle, skit where everybody's going to getting checks and, you know, and everybody's going to buy Cadillacs and, you haven't seen it, it's hilarious. But, it's it's in opportunities like cannabis being legalized. You know, unfortunately, there is a large amount of individuals, mainly, men, um, people of color that have just been disenfranchised, that have been taken away from their families, and as a result of that, our family structure has broken down, which leads to other things, and we're not here to talk
Mhm.
about that, so I won't get on that, but
Yeah, yeah.
it's it's a domino effect, and now we have the right and we have the ability to right those wrongs.
Yeah, definitely.
And to, like you said, generational wealth. I say all the time that this is going to be our 40 acres and a mule.
Yeah.
During COVID, a lot of people definitely took advantage. And I, my podcast started in 2019, but I used to say, if you're doing the same thing when this COVID thing's over, like 2021, that you were doing in 2019, and don't take advantage of this year of time that we had to develop ourselves and pursue your true purpose, then I can't mess with you. And I would really tell people, don't talk to me, because if you did not take the opportunity to either pursue entrepreneurship, I mean, that could be just in having passive income. I can't tell you how many affiliate programs and things, that I do for passive income. And it's so simple because most of us have a family member, a loved one, a friend, somebody that we know that, had their life affected, because of cannabis.
Mm.
And us building that support and that equity behind those individuals where now they can get into the industry, you know, do what they love. There's so many just talented cultivators out there. Um, bakers, people like myself, I'm a maker, so I use the plant in its full ability. So I make topicals and, things that help with
All different
any
types
side effects.
of
Yeah.
like
Um,
lotions and like
mhm,
drops
yep,
and
yeah,
all the different products because there's so many things you can do.
yes.
Um, and it's really like taking that plant and using every aspect of
Mhm,
it
mhm,
to generate, wellness and wealth at the same
mhm,
time. And I think it's really interesting when you said about like what people were doing prior to COVID. Like I was a road warrior. I'm an IT professional and then I'm an
mhm.
artist. I'm a musician, I'm a producer, I'm a podcaster.
Oh,
And I found I started podcasting back in 2016 and I used to be on the road for my band and for my work. And then the whole model started to shift where I was like being able to interview people all over the world without having to travel. And then I
mhm,
said, "Wow, that's really interesting." I focused on music, and then I opened it up to all types of people. So I got very expansive, and it's been a really interesting journey because I've been able to monetize the podcast. I've been able to get
mhm,
into different areas, to
mhm,
license my music, and even though I'm not big on the top 10 or anything, I've been able to use this social media, use
mhm.
podcasting to be able to get into sync licensing, do music for video games, all kinds of cool stuff. But it's because
Wow.
I'm out here presenting and it changed my, just because I take ownership of, this brand of like Phantom Electric Ghost, like you have with
Mhm,
your lady MJ. And so once people start discovering that you can take your brand, which is you,
mhm,
and market you and your ideas, and you don't have to be part of some big
mhm.
multinational to make it now. That we're in the age of like the creator
Yes,
economy. That if you go out
that's
and you create,
yeah,
it will
yeah.
free.
I was gonna say, and I have chills because I can tell that your energy, just you talking about your experience, everything that what you perform or what you provide. You are a creative person, and it's so important that when you are a creative person, you have to tap into that creativity. When you're not, that's when you feel like you're in a slump. That's when you feel like I just out of sorts. And so it's super important to identify that you are a creative person and how, what your outlets are for that. So I love that you mentioned music. I was a singer. Um, I was gonna be next Janet Jackson. Couldn't tell me nothing. Um, and at 25, I was like, okay, girl, you give up
Sorry.
on it. Like there's something else that you can do,
Yeah, yeah.
within the realm of you still being creative. And I mean, I say all the time, music is my boyfriend. Um,
Mhm.
and I love to talk about how cannabis and music, it's been scientifically proven it works together. They work together so well.
Yeah.
Um,
When you listen to the
that
Wailers, you
yeah.
listen to the Wailers and you get that the whole vibe of, like, that is so integral in the part what they
Mhm,
were doing, the whole
mhm,
Natty Dread, and, like, if you listen to it and you understand where their mindset
mhm.
is coming from, and then if you listen to, like, a lot of the artists from the '60s, from Hendrix to Morrison to,
Yeah.
like, the Beatles, there was something about the mind expansion that was
Mhm,
happening with
mhm.
these artists that if you listen to artists that maybe aren't as influenced by that, they're more in the box, more in the machine, or
Yeah.
they're doing everything from the DAW
Mhm.
instead of doing it from like a feeling.
Yes.
There
Yeah.
seems to be a big difference between the level of the music.
I mean, if you look at some of the biggest albums and contribution to music in our history, they all were definitely utilizing cannabis, maybe some mushrooms and something else, but,
Yeah, yeah,
um,
Hendrix,
yeah, yeah, um, the Beatles especially, I mean,
Yeah, yeah, I
they
mean,
what was their show?
the difference between Help and Sergeant Pepper's.
Yes,
If you
right?
see
Yeah,
that it's like
yeah,
this it's like a totally different world. It's like the way they
totally.
started opening their minds,
Mhm.
you get into like a band like Pink Floyd. It's like, how could you
Yeah,
ever get that
yes.
if you
I
weren't being influenced to a certain extent? So it's like
Mhm.
all that work done in the late '60s and the '70s opened up
It's
creativity
yeah,
to such a high level, and then
yeah,
it got a lot
it's
corporatized when people started, like, trying to
yes,
tame it.
yes.
And,
Mhm.
I've
Yeah.
been very disappointed in that, and my whole effort in what I do is try to go back to those original kinda late '60s, mid '70s vibe, and that's what I'm into, but I digress. But
Well,
I
it's
think it's all
funny that
about
you mentioned
trying to
that.
find that sweet spot.
Yeah. Well, I love that you mentioned that because I just, was watching something, George Clinton, he was on
Oh,
Drink
yeah, he's a
Champs,
favorite.
and he talked about how he accidentally made was it Atomic Dog?
Atomic Dog's like what there's big hits.
I think it was
Yeah.
Atomic Dog that he said he accidentally made because he went in, he was high, and he said that he had just smoked, and he went in and he thought that the engineer and the people that were in the studio, they were playing a joke on him or that they had already started recording. So
Mhm.
when he came in, they were playing the track backwards,
Oh,
and
wow.
he immediately just
Started
started singing.
vibing to it
So if you listen to it, it's the whole song, the whole track is played backwards.
backwards. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's
that's
interesting 'cause
amazing. Yeah.
Funkadelic, they kinda started, like, if you get, like, I think it's like, it's a great album. I think something like "Your Ass Will Follow," but, "Free Your Mind, Your Ass Will Follow," like, their first thing,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
And so that session was, like, they were just totally into, like, Mary Jane and other things, and
mhm.
it just started this thing where they mixed psychedelic, like,
Yeah,
art with
yeah.
jazz, R&B, funk, and rock. And
Mhm.
to this day, funkadelic is the basis of almost all Parliament Funkadelic is the basis of almost all hip hop.
Oh,
It was the
oh,
start o
yeah,
of it all, and it's
and even
really
some rock. I
yeah,
know,
yeah,
Foo
Eddie Hay
Fighters, they're
yeah,
heavily influenced
influence.
by yeah, and, Red Hot
And
Chili
that
Peppers, but
creativity is oh, yeah, the Chili Peppers were totally funkadelic, like,
mhm,
fan fanboys. I mean, they're
yeah,
totally into it, and their whole vibe is, like, it's a variation on funkadelic. It's a variation on
mhm,
Parliament P-Funk. And
yeah,
P-Funk is so powerful in terms of, like, Prince, he was he idolized, all the guys, like Eddie Hazel,
yes,
Bernie Worrell, Bootsy, he had George Clinton on Paisley Park Records trying to
Mhm.
help him out because he
Yeah.
was not being aided by the industry at that time. So he did some albums with him. It was just wholly idolizing him. Prince is like a king himself, but he knew where the funk came from Brett
Mhm.
James Brown and Curtis Mayfield and people like that. And the idea that funkadelic is all throughout Prince's work. Is that
Mhm.
he's taken it from his Minneapolis sound and vibing with it in a rock way and a
Yeah.
funk way, but it's totally you can see the line from them
And
to him. It
implemented that
totally
all.
is very clear.
Even with the time,
Yeah,
he brought them in. Morris Day was the drummer. He was not a singer,
yeah,
and Prince saw it in
he's
them,
an awesome
and
drummer.
yeah, yeah. So it's there's so many times in history, in the existence of, who we are, that it's been proven to be beneficial over and over and over again. And, I love the influence on art because that is most
Yeah,
beautiful things that we can leave, that we can leave our footprint on. And that's what we're here for. When you are being creative and you're expressing yourself, you're being in tune. I'm sounding a little hippie-ish here, but I totally believe it. Your energy and what you're doing within this huge puzzle called the universe is is being symbiotic. It's in sync at that time. And that's
definitely.
where some of the most beautiful things that this world has to give us and to show us, that's where it derives from. Um, yeah, I it's it's a shame that for so many decades it was villainized and
Mhm.
systematically used to criminalize and to, break down, people of color mainly.
Oh,
And
yeah, it's another technique like after slavery,
Mhm,
the free slaves, they just started, putting them back into the prison industrial complex
mhm,
for loitering, for just walking on the street, not having enough
yep,
money, and they
mhm,
just wanted to they criminalized the free slaves, and so
mhm,
they have a tendency of the overall society to try to criminalize like the free slaves or the
mhm,
free people, and
mhm,
they've found another method with cannabis was as though okay we can criminalize and put these people back into the
mhm,
industrial complex prison complex,
mm,
and I've been very adamant that I don't think that's a total waste of human power
just
to take people who are so creative
yeah,
and then take them out of the society
mhm,
to go make them just do manual labor because you're
and
so yeah, for their
instead of
pure benefit.
utilizing it to you know, we really could probably be our society in this country could probably be evolved a lot more into, the future.
Yeah,
We could have a good financial, situation. There wouldn't be, any right now, there's an upper class and the rest of it are poor. There's no middle class anymore, but this having cannabis and have it legalized,
it's an
having
opportunity.
farms, having people work in it, you see it now, if you're paying attention at all, between 2016 and today, it has blown up, and the opportunities for careers, to allow people to not be dependent on the government the way that they really want. Um, it's something that we need to stay focused on. The equity aspect of it, changing the laws around it, that is something that is so important because once that happens, you know, eh, people wouldn't have to worry about it.
Yeah,
I've met so many people that are like, "I just got out, and I really would like to get into the industry." Maybe my wife was telling me that I can get in legally, but they're terrified, which they should be because you can't
because the
trust.
way the system yeah, well, the system is,
Exactly.
there's certain places in America where there's a lot of backslide.
Mhm.
There's a lot of criminalization of black folks again, to keep
Mhm.
us from
Mhm.
voting, trying to keep doing
Yeah.
this, trying to keep us from doing that. So the next
Mhm.
thing you can see them doing in certain zones, like MAGA zones, might be
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
criminalize it again to
Yeah.
get people back in. As soon as they start seeing you make money, It's kind of like when the free people,
Mhm.
got out there, they went and took the free towns that black people had, like the
Mhm.
Black Wall
Oh,
Streets, and burned them down
yep. Oh, yeah.
because we can't
Central
have
Park.
that. You can't have
Um,
that.
oh, yeah. We can't they're self-sufficient. Oh, no, no, no. We can't have that. And that was part of my the catalyst for me to get into the industry. I went to a networking event, and I was the only woman. No, I'm sorry. There were 4 of us total, but I was the only Black woman. Shocker.
Mhm.
And this was a
Yeah.
cannabis mixer and networking. And I'm watching these guys get out of Maseratis, and they have, Birkenstocks on, cargo shorts, and I am nosy, okay? I can have a conversation, but I'm totally hearing what's going on over here. So I'm hearing them go, "Oh, I got my money for my wedding from my grandma." And another one's going, "Oh, well, I'm gonna, max out this card." Another one's going, "Oh, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this." And they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna get into cannabis." And it infuriated me because I saw immediately that to them, it wasn't the gold rush, it was the green rush.
Mhm.
And that to me, I came home, I remember telling my husband, I said, I know I'm one person, but whatever that I can do where we can make sure that this industry is put in the hands of those who deserve it and those that will we live in America. It's gonna become capitalist at
Yeah, yeah.
some point.
Point.
But
Yeah.
if we really keep the focus on the wellness aspect of it, it could be another business sector
And
that is great for the country and our economy.
when you think about it from life coaching, mentoring, wellness kind of perspective, the people who are doing things like that, and like they put together like it seems like you're putting a lifestyle coaching and podcasting is really incrementally expanding
Yeah. Mhm.
the podcast was going, where people will have a program. They have a program. People go to their program. They go to conventions. They go to
Mhm.
mentoring sessions. People go and they set up a group event. They'll go like a week,
Mhm.
3 days, and then people pay to get to that,
Yeah.
and they get education, and they get
Yeah.
trained, and they get learn. 'Cause that's how the world is working. That's how you
Mhm.
can monetize yourself in the
Yes.
world that I've seen in the last 2 years, last 6 months even, is this expanding exponentially in that way. And to make sure that
It's
you get
okay that
people who
people
are
are
really
no, I
trustworthy.
say people have a thirst for knowledge, finally.
Yeah,
It's okay for people to become knowledgeable in something that they're interested in instead of just, well, you're gonna go to school for what, 13 years, you know, however long, and that's the education that you are gonna get because that's the one that you're supposed to get. Now people are going, "Wait, wait, wait. I can find the truth. I can find the right information. I can find what's relevant, to me and what's gonna be conducive to me living my best life, and I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna use that as the power because knowledge is power." And,
yeah,
you know, when creating this brand, I knew that I wanted to educate and I wanted to start with women, because I know that for me, cannabis helps me to be a, much better mother, more present. My husband and I have been together 22 years this year. Um, Couples that smoke together stay together. No, but it helps our communication. Um,
yeah.
it's
It's a better
it yeah,
well,
it's
I mean,
just
much better
it's
than alcohol. I mean,
oh,
in
much
terms of alcohol, if you compare alcohol, in terms of
mhm,
maybe the damage alcohol does versus the benefits that
mhm.
cannabis has, and it maybe the alcohol industry doesn't want you to know that.
No,
They've been for
no.
years and years associating like romance with wine and champagne
Mhm.
and all these other things. Really, it's not the thing you probably want to be using if you want to be in a romantic mode. You probably shouldn't
No.
be going that direction because it tends
Yeah.
to have then it has negative
It
poisonous
suppresses.
aspects. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's yeah, it's I
So it's
mean, I've never known anybody to say, "I was drunk off my, tail and wrote this novel," or, "Drunk off my tail and had this, relationship saving a conversation with my son or parent or friend or whatever. Have yet to hear that. Um, but I know for me, it helped me to identify, like I said, to go into the journey of discovering my passion and defining my purpose. And cannabis, it really helped me to do that. And now, it's my career and I love what I do. I mean, like I was saying earlier, my mission statement, you know, educate, which can lead to eradication, which then leads to people having the choice to elevate their lifestyles, their health, just their existence in any way that they see, need be. Um, and I'd always wanted to have a platform. I used to say I wanted to be on a radio show, and we all know radio's going anywhere. So,
Yeah.
with the
Podcasting
supports
is the new radio.
yeah, yeah,
Podcasting is
with
the
the support of
radio.
my husband, yeah, I started, Menage with the MariJayne Maven, which is my cannabis, lifestyle podcast, and in 2019, so I'm going into the 4th year, and that has led me into hosting 3 other podcasts, and now I'm a expert, speaker. I spoke at 6 trade shows and events last year. Um, I always
That's
collaborate
awesome.
with other podcasts and podcast hosts to just create that content. Like you said, this we are in an age of creativity and creating that content and putting our own narrative and story out there, for others to be inspired by, to relate to. So I
Yeah, it's just kind of like the record industry has been kind of upended by the fact that
mhm,
people can go on TikTok
mhm,
and YouTube and SoundCloud and
yeah,
suddenly come outside of the gate, right?
mhm.
The gatekeepers are having problems because
Oh
now
yeah.
you people can create businesses they have no control over,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
And so that is not they're not very happy in a
No.
lot of different industries. Then in the podcast world is really interesting because you get people who are able to create their own brands
Mhm.
and are not selling those brands to the multinationals. So they're
Yes.
not allowing themselves to get bought up. And this is
Yes.
probably going to be really critical to the whole this economy is if
Mhm,
people start selling their ideas to these big
mhm,
companies, which are they're going to
mhm.
start trying to get. That's
And
where they'll
it's
try to control and collapse,
yeah,
and people try
slowly
to not
happening. It's
fall
slowly
into
happening.
fall into.
I will say that when you have those in our society that are well off, such as, Diddy, he just purchased, was it called you remember the name of the company? I can't remember the name of the company, but he
He
just,
bought one.
spent, like, well over $100 million to purchase the interest in this integrated it's a fully integrated cannabis company, but what he's
Oh,
doing
okay.
now is he is using that opportunity to help dispensary owners
Oh,
and
okay.
people of color, so to help equity. So when you're having those individuals that can
Yeah, they
and
can.
then
That's the
do,
right way. Yeah,
that's
that's
what's
a
gonna
good
help.
thing.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
good.
so
Better than some big, big multinational take it and then
mhm,
kinda copyright and then
mhm,
try to collapse things and say, "Well, you can't grow this, and I'm gonna own this, and I'm gonna own that." So, that's when you start getting the destructive aspects of it.
mhm,
Um, and it's just like it pervades everything. There are people with like AI. AI
yeah,
goes and steals models' images and then takes runway models off the floor.
yes.
'Cause it's like,
Oh,
"Oh,
yeah.
I can create an AI model,
Mhm,
and now the model doesn't have work," and the
yep,
same has happened into music. I can go
yeah,
get an AI bass line, and then you don't pay the bass player.
mhm,
So,
mhm,
it's a lot of people gotta understand, like, when you're in the box, maybe you should choose not to take those AI options. Maybe you
yes.
should still try to have a human being in art. To me,
Yeah,
it's like
yes.
the idea of AI taking over so many things
I
is
kinda liken it to,
is not so
we
good.
tell our boys, "You have to know how to count money and count change," or, things like that. For example, what if you're in the grocery store, the electricity's out, and you need to make sure that you're receiving your right amount of change? So you're not gonna be able to have that convenience of that automatic cash register, but with the knowledge of, how to count your change and whatnot, then you'll
Yeah.
have a leg up. So it's the same, same kind of same sentiment. Um, and it's of course, like I said, we're going to see some capitalism. Um,
Yeah,
the big tobacco company, they're, they're
they're
just
trying to probably jump
waiting
in, trying
around.
to
Yeah,
they're waiting around
waiting
to
around
have
for
the marijuana dispensary
yes.
machines, and
Mhm,
I've heard
mhm.
that they had those in development from the back in the day.
Yeah.
Back in the day,
Oh,
they always were on the edge
mhm,
of
yeah.
being able to like, "Oh, we're just gonna put these out." And,
Mhm,
so we got the people have gotta understand that they're always on the edge of trying to do that. It's just like the AI coming in and permeating all the studio musicians that are so talented that they're trying
yeah.
to eliminate that role so that
Do
people
you think
wouldn't
that's
need people like that. And I think people are always gonna want a real bass player and a real
mhm,
drummer. I'm sorry. I
mhm.
think there's always gonna be a need. And I had some argument with an IT guy. So, well, we can replace you. And I'm like, you can't do jazz with AI.
I
You can't be a
there's
fusion
a
jazz
feeling
band.
that
You can't be a
right,
funk band with AI.
right.
Like maybe you think you are, but you really.
Yeah, yeah. I was just had a thought while you were speaking. I wonder if that's why so many artists are selling their, their collection, and selling the rights to their music because it's like, well, I have to pivot before I'm not
It
needed
happens.
anymore.
Yeah, some of them
Um,
are. I mean, the big guys like Springsteen and Dylan have
mhm,
sold their whole catalog. I
mhm.
think they got undercut. People, they got 300,000,000. This stuff's probably worth a billion,
Yeah.
and
Dr. Dre too, yeah,
when you sell for
250,000,000.
300,000,000, your kids are
Yeah.
gonna be kicking you. Your grandkids are gonna get kicking you because when you find out what it really is worth, it sounds like a lot
Mhm.
of money, but 300,000,000 is not worth a lot of money compared to, like, the billions that you can really make.
Yes. Yeah,
And
and
so
I think the only positive is that they can maybe count on their songs being used in streaming or on TikTok and things like that, so you will still have your, your creation being out there, and
your
I
royalties
know,
coming in.
like, Metro Boomin was the latest, artist to do it, and I know for him, he said, "It's not like I can't make more. I'll make more." He's like, "But now
Yeah.
I just got a cool $80
Yeah,
million
you sell your
dollars."
catalog at a point in time. Yeah, you can
Yeah,
sell it at a point in time as long as you make a mistake of selling your future rights. So you
right,
gotta be
yeah.
careful with these lawyers because, like,
Mhm.
if you actually sign that contract and they say, "Well, it's all your future music too," you don't wanna do that.
Got you're like Montel
You know?
Jordan. But, it's I love
Yeah.
that you say that because as we were talking about, there's so much information where you can do a lot on your own, and you can inform yourself, so at least when you go sit down with that attorney, you're not playing boo boo the fool. You're able
Yeah.
to have a conversation, and that's in everything, and especially, back to the cannabis industry, but, you know, are people that are trying to get into it. When I speak to them, I say, first, let's look into your county's equity program, um, and try to utilize that because
Mm.
another obstacle is the amount of money that it takes to
Yeah.
start a legit
See if you can get
cannabis company
loans. Yeah, I
storefront.
mean,
Exactly.
is
Mhm.
that another problem you've run into people trying to get it? Because it's really kinda known that banks, redline
Yeah.
black loaners. They
Yeah.
they either give you crazy rates or don't give you the opportunity or don't give you enough funds, give you really bad terms that just do it. Even if you've
Mhm.
got the same credit history as the next
Mhm.
guy, the
Right.
all so-called all-American guy comes in from the
Yeah.
suburbs.
Yeah.
And on
From the guy
paper,
that's
you
gonna
both
start
went to the
a
same
flower
school.
shop, and then you wanna start a
Yeah.
flower shop too, but yeah. No, it's,
Yeah, you don't get
the
the same terms. It's like you got the
not at
same
all.
record, but
Not at
you're
all.
not getting the same term.
Mhm. What I say usually, my advice, to individuals in that situation, I say, first and foremost, it'd be great if you could come up with the funds yourself in a dream
Mhm.
world. I mean, I know most people look at me crazy like, "Who do you think I am?" But I always say, you know, family, like there's ways around it where you don't have to um potentially end up an employee again because you have to sell your business to somebody else. Um, or
Mhm.
look into equity programs. Most equity programs within the states, they, they have stipulations that, you have to meet in order to qualify. 9 times out of 10, they are, if you've had any, criminal history that was related, a past, conviction that was related to cannabis. If you live in a lower income neighborhood, if you are going to start, and I'm saying this off the top of my head because I know my local area, this is what we have.
Mm,
Or if
mhm.
you're going to create kind of like an incubator business where you're gonna be able to bring in other employees underneath you and, kind of keep the process going. Problem is, here in California, all of the funds have been, you know, um, given out to each one of the counties that qualified. So then you have to make sure that the counties are doing right by, those funds that they receive. So it
Oh,
has
yeah.
to be
Is it
checks and
famous? I've heard
balances.
that
Mhm,
counties have money for one thing and then use it for something else.
mhm,
And
mhm,
we've seen in government that you have money set aside for a specific task, and then suddenly they go and use it for another task.
mhm,
And then
mhm.
where's the accountability? And especially when it's a
Where's it at?
program that might be helping disadvantaged people or
Yeah.
people,
Oh, yeah.
then you go to find out that they went and moved the money and gave it over to a totally
Mhm.
doesn't have anything to do with what they were supposed to do. And then they
Yeah.
go and then that's when you have to like vote.
Yes, I was gonna say advocacy is huge and part of this industry. It's not just buying your tree or buying your t-shirt or whatever like that. It is definitely part of advocacy and then holding those.
People accountable.
Yes, because they won't do it. I mean, come on, we can talk about government again.
Yeah.
We know that they say look over here so
And
that they
you
can be doing something over
and you
here.
move it over there.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's super important within this industry that, if you find your way in, if you find, maybe you don't want to be flower touching, there are so many ancillary, you know, businesses and services that you can provide. So many individuals know how to create graphic art.
Mhm.
There's brands that need logos. There's
Oh,
brands
wow.
that need, things like that. Maybe photographers. There's brands that need that. Um, Education's huge. Part of what I do in the industry is brand education. You may have heard brand ambassador, but I just do not believe that with cannabis, brand ambassador goes and doesn't have the same importance as brand educator.
Oh,
Because in
okay.
the cannabis industry, you cannot market and advertise like Pepsi can. So you
Mhm.
have to get creative as a cannabis brand, as a cannabis owner, if you want to be able to succeed. So
So
you have to put a little
education
bit of that.
instead of having like an ambassador on
Mhm,
Instagram, and you know what
mhm,
that usually looks like.
mhm. Yes.
A
Yeah.
and compared to, like, an idea if you're coming from, like, a mentor, life coach, lifestyle educator, right?
Mhm.
It's a different type of role.
It
It's
is.
kinda like somebody that's at a big convention, and they're going and they're pitching to
Yeah.
that group, and it's a diff that is it sounds like that's the way you have to go. You don't go for the type of thing you
Yes.
see on Instagram and Facebook and
Yes.
all the and
And
Twitter.
and you can,
You have
but it's creating that positive image first and then going through there.
okay,
Brand
yeah. Okay.
educators are super important, just like bud tenders. That is your first line to be able
Mhm.
to get the correct information out there about your product to the target audience, to the consumers. Especially because there's so many consumers, that are baby boomers, or below that generation who used to smoke seeds back in the day, and
Mhm.
they've been the ones that have truly been the guinea pigs as far as big pharma getting on, one pill and getting on another. Now they're getting tired of that.
Yeah,
Now
actually,
that
yeah.
Yeah, and so
Try
they're
yeah.
looking into cannabis, but when you walk into a dispensary, it can be
Yeah, it's kinda like
overloading.
organic.
Yes. Um, there's just an
Wow.
abundance of products, and
So
so
is
you
this like an
need individuals.
online
I actually go into dispensaries,
do
so
you,
I do my education
events,
right there, right
actual
in front of the
physical
customers. Yeah,
storefronts?
yeah. Um, I was
You find that
doing one
that
the other
works
day.
better? Because I know a lot
Oh,
of things are
yeah.
so well, I guess Yeah, 'cause I was like face to face is probably always better in sales.
Mhm.
Like my father was an insurance sales guy for 30 years. And he was one of those guys that actually walked in the house like a vacuum salesman or book salesman.
Mhm. Mhm.
And he always said that like he didn't do the cold calls. He used to just look at
Paper, yeah. Yeah.
real estate listings
Mhm.
and go find people to show up. And he
Yeah.
just knew how to find the people, and he was a big good communicator. And so it must be
Mhm.
that same kind of sales kind of be have that mindset, which I guess if you
Yeah.
don't have,
It's,
you have to learn. Did you already have that? Or did you have to
I
learn
did.
it?
That's, my career prior was in corporate sales. So, it was corporate sales, customer service, product, management, um, and like I said, when I started looking into my brand and what I want to do, I was like, "Oh, I know how to do that.
Well, you had it.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
you already
understand that."
had the sales. Yeah, so you
Yeah,
had it.
yeah.
So it
So,
wasn't gonna be a big
it's
lift.
no, and you have to be a people person. And you have to have a true passion and understanding of cannabis. You can't be somebody that's
Mhm,
like, I just smoke like because of the novelty of it. It's you're
mhm.
helping people and their health and their life. And it's funny that you say sales because I was doing a demo the other day and this young man came in and he wasn't there for the product that I was educating on. And my um the way that I approach it is if what I'm educating on doesn't work for you, let's go find what does. So I take
Mhm.
a lot of pride in having a wide product knowledge
Oh, so you can
platform.
pivot. You can pivot
Yeah,
from one to the next, yeah.
yeah. So I'll be in there with one brand, brand A, but I'm over here educating, them and just perfectly getting them prepared, to purchase this product and to, implement that into their health and wellness. But I was talking to this guy. I talk clearly, which is why I do 4 podcasts. But we're just talking. I told him about a product. He's like, "Oh, I'll think about it." I say, "Do let's go find what you need." So I ended up helping him find flour. And then I walked back to my area, and then I noticed that he was actually purchasing 2 of the items that I was educating on. And
Oh,
I said, "Oh,
wow.
you decided to get that?" And he's just like, "You did a damn good job. You're a good salesperson." And I said, "Well, stop right there.
You convinced them.
Don't take offense to that." I said, "But I'm an educator." I said, "Sales is something that you do because you believe in the product because you kind of been trained to, or the service.
Mm,
I believe in cannabis because I have a personal relationship with it. Like I said, I
mhm.
know
Yeah,
how
it
it can
helped you
improve your
with
life."
your health, yeah.
Yes.
You had your
And
own
because of my
experience,
brand,
kinda like
yeah. And
yeah.
because of my brand, when I do contract with companies to do education, I have to try out the product. I'm not gonna be out there putting my brand on the line because 9 times out of 10, people think that whichever brand I'm educating on is mine. And I
Mhm.
never wanna put my stamp of approval on something that's,
Something you
subpar,
don't
especially
really
because it's
oh, yeah.
medicine for so many people. Um,
It's very
but
important.
I
I
told
think it's
him
important.
yeah. No, I told him, I said, I appreciate you saying that you think I'm good at what I do. I said, I like to say that I'm purposeful, I'm passionate. I said, and I love to educate others. I said, because the knowledge that I give you, you may be able to give to your grandmother or your aunt or somebody else that really needs it. So he goes to walk away and he turns around and he tries to hand me $10. He goes, I just want to tip you. I was like, no, 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 no. I said, the fact that you identify what I'm doing and that I'm good at it and, that I'm
That's
able to help
enough.
you in whatever aspect, that's all that I need, so it was,
That's cool.
yeah, it's super rewarding. So I tell anybody if you wanna get into the industry, there's ways to do it. If you bake bread, start baking some infused bread.
Mhm.
I make,
So edibles
um
edibles is a big, big thing. It's not
yes.
just like brownies, but you can bring it into,
Mhm.
like, all kinds of things. I mean, I guess you could
Yeah.
bring it into smoothies, you could bring it in
Yes. Yeah, and
all
definitely, of
kinds
course, check
of
on,
different things or even mix or
yeah.
smoothies and
Check on
stuff,
the
yeah.
regulations and the laws for your state. I will say that if you're wanting to get into the industry and you don't really have
Yeah.
to worry about right now the regulations, look in the beauty, the health and wellness side. Um,
Oh, it's
making
easier?
topicals,
Less
making
regulations
teas.
on
Yeah.
topicals?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I mean, because it's just like somebody making soaps at home, you know.
Oh, that's
So yeah,
interesting.
there,
Yeah, because that seems
yeah.
like is there like a lot of roles for like redistributors or people like you know how the Amazon kind of model where people
hmm
go and become like a distributor and they go and they become
Yeah.
another distribution source. Is that part of
hmm
your model?
They're not part of mine. I mean, I could run it if I had to, but it's definitely part of the manufacturing and the distribution side, which is huge. Now, I will say this: if you have an interest in that, you definitely want to find an organization that is going to be integrated in many aspects. So maybe they
Mhm.
do the manufacturing and distribution for a brand that is not able to do it. So then they do it for that brand. And then they pick up another one. That's opportunity for you to grow because as these
Mhm.
companies become multi-tiered, that's more opportunity for careers. Getting in and clipping the plants, the cultivation aspect of it, rolling up pre-rolls. I did that for a summer
Mhm.
because I wanted to really know, that side of cannabis. Plus I got to smoke all the pre-rolls I wanted. But just getting in,
But it gives
taking
you
your
another
skills.
source of work. Yeah, it's another source of
Yeah.
work for people who are
Mhm,
trying to be independent and
mhm.
don't wanna do the Uber, DoorDash, and tired of working at
Yes,
Walmart, tired of working at
yes.
Burger King. You know, like,
Making
let's
other people
try to
successful, working for
yeah,
somebody else.
like
Yeah.
yeah, do
Um,
something for yourself.
yeah, I mean, there's so many cannabis barbecue companies now, just somebody that loved to barbecue. And now they're infusing their barbecue sauce or maybe their mac and cheese. Um,
There's a lot of
there's
opportunity. That's a
it's
lot of
so
opportunity.
many, so
Yeah,
many.
that's a lot of places that you can do. Now we actually hit our hour mark, and it
Oh my gosh,
always
it went
goes
by so
by so
fast.
it goes by really fast. But I wanted to let people know that I've created a short, link that if you see below is https / found.ee MJ Maven, and that will go right to the website that you provided. And that will also be in the description of the podcast when you click on it. And this will be published on platforms like Podcast, Spotify Video Podcast, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and many, many more. So thank you again for being on the show. I'm sorry
Thank
we hit that
you.
mark. I wasn't watching it as
No,
closely as I could, but
when you're in having enjoying conversation and when you're having fun, just time flies by. I really thought we were like 30 minutes. So no, I want to thank you.
no,
I would love to extend for you to be on my podcast as well. So we'll definitely talk offline on that.
okay, that'd be
But
great. Yeah,
yeah,
we could work that
yeah,
out. Yeah,
perfect. Well, I
I think it's
appreciate you.
awesome. I love the community of podcasting because I get to meet
Mhm.
people
Yeah.
all over the world, doing all
Mhm.
different types of things. And what I've done is I've gotten out of a narrow focus. Before we go, I used to just interview musicians, and then I said,
Mhm.
well, music is kind of like somebody said, well, how can you interview a life coach and a musician? I said, well, weren't the Beatles like the biggest life coaches for
I
everybody who got into art?
I mean, come on.
Like, come on, it's like it's the same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Like Marvin Gaye when he talked about what's going on, how
Right there.
many people got
Sam
into
Cooke.
the environmental movement?
Yes.
And Sam Cooke and all of these great people that
Mhm.
it motivates you. Stevie Wonder, we start talking about
Yes.
like mindset and then Martin Luther
Mhm.
King's birthday. How many people
Yes.
actually went and made sure that happened because he
Mhm.
started saying things,
Yeah.
it's a big motivator. And so I found the parallels and I said, well, I can expand to talk to anybody, even though I
Yeah.
still musicians, but I just wanted to let people know like the narrow focus is cool if you want to just talk about X, that's fine.
Mhm.
But I've kind of opened it up to be as like mind expanding as what
Yeah,
you
I
tried to
talk
do with
about
what you're doing.
everything. I mean, because there's always somebody out there that's gonna be interested in what you have to say or that agrees. Um, and we gotta use this platform. We have to tell our own story and, kind of rewrite, you know, the normal idea
Definitely.
of what people of color and just content creators are. So, yeah, I'm with you there. Don't have
Thank you.
limited belief, guys.
Thank Yeah, thank you for being on the program. It's a very great
Mm,
conversation. I'm gonna be happy when I push it out further, and you'll be able to share that landing page that we're gonna send where you can get everything on like one page. But thank you
great.
again for being on the
Thank
show.
you. I appreciate it.
A good rest of the day or afternoon or evening. I'm not sure where you are. I'm in New
Yes.
Hampshire, but I'll talk
Oh,
to you.
okay. Oh, yeah, I'm
All
California,
right.
so your day is almost over. Uh,
Yeah.
but thank you so much.